What is up, YouTube? We are back, finally. It's been a long time. It's been a while. But had a lot going on. We had the combine happen. We've had the bulk of free agency happen. And it's just been a crazy time. So we're here to finally talk about it. If you're new here, this is the Fumble Pod. I am your host, Dalton Lee. And we're gonna jump right on into it. It's been a chaotic 2 weeks, for sure. For sure. My stepbrother had to get moved in, so I helped him with that. Things have been crazy at work. We had the NFL Combine. We had free agency. We had a trade that happened and then didn't happen. We got a lot to cover. So, starting off with the Combine. The Combine, there were definitely some risers, to say the least. To say the least. Obviously, quarterback class didn't get talked about much. Mendoza didn't do a whole lot. He just measured, which he measured pretty big. I think he was like 6'3", 225, which looking at him, never would have thought he was that big, ever. But obviously, Sonny Styles and Avril Reese looked like the best linebackers out there. Freak athletes. I think Sonny Styles ran a 4.41, 4.39, right in that range, and Avril Reese wasn't far. So we already knew how freakishly athletic they were. They just further proved it that they are freakishly athletic. Kenyon Sadiq had a phenomenal combine. I think he's solidified himself as a top 20 player for sure. The O line looked good. D line showed out, whether it was athleticism, raw strength. So far, hadn't heard anything crazy about some terrible interviews, so things are looking interesting to say the least. About the biggest shakeup with all this draft related stuff was the Ravens had traded the number 14 overall pick, a future first, and a couple other smaller picks for Max Crosby. That was on a Friday. That was last Friday. Trade for Max Crosby. We're like, okay. And trade for Max Crosby right before free agency just to know a position is taken care of. Lamar was a fan of the deal. It was like, oh. And you're sitting there, you're like, poor Joe Burrow, man. Have to deal with Max Crosby 2 days a week. Have to deal with Miles, or 2 times a year. Miles Garrett 2 times a year. TJ Watt 2 times a year. Your star edge rusher is going into free agency. The Bengals were allowing Trey Hendrickson to go into free agency. We're like, oh, what in the world are we doing? So that happens on Friday. Sunday is when the tampering period opens. That's where players can initially agree to contracts, just can't officially sign it. And Sunday, there were some big things happening. Sunday and Monday, big things were happening. Uh, the Chiefs got Kenneth Walker, which I don't know. I understand why Seattle let him leave because he really didn't have. He had a great year. Had a great year. Had a great finish to the year. But for majority of the year, he was kind of splitting carries with Zach Charbonnet. So you look at it as, okay, maybe they think Charbonnet can come back. They can draft another guy and kind of just build up that team. Build up that run game again. They don't necessarily need a bell cow. Whereas Chiefs are like, we need help in the passing game. We need to help relieve pressure off of Patrick Mahomes. Kelsey's not getting much younger. He can't carry the load. Let's go get a guy. They've been trying to go get a real starting running back 4 years now. They tried to make Pacheco that lead back. Didn't work. He had the one good year. They had Damian Williams. They drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round. So it was like, okay, they finally get their true starting running back one, and a guy that's going to be really good. So we're like, okay, that's a big move. Um, the Panthers. I know we're talking a little bias here. Talking a little Panthers bias. Panthers had a really good offseason so far. They signed Jalen Phillips, 4 years, 120 million, and Devin Lloyd, 3 years, 45 million. When I saw both of those signings happen pretty much on the same day, I think both were on announced Monday, officially signed on Wednesday. I was like, oh, Dan Morgan's looking at free agency, going, okay, we need an edge rusher, and we needed a true pass coverage, run stopping middle linebacker, and he went and got it. And it's like, okay, the GM knows what he wants, and he went and got it. Because if you're a Panthers fan, you remember last year we had Milton Williams, we had him signed in this tampering period, and Patriots swooped in, threw a bigger offer, and they got him, and he went on to have a pretty good year. So he didn't want that to happen again. Devin Lloyd, I think, is a great deal. 15 mil a year for a linebacker of his caliber. Just came off a year where he was an all-pro, played phenomenal. That's a good deal. Jalen Phillips, it's an overpay. It's an overpay. But the guy's 26. He's been up there in the upper tiers of pressures, freakishly athletic. It's just a matter of can he stay on the field? Because he had back-to-back years with an Achilles and ACL tear. This year he actually played. I think he only ended with maybe 8 sacks between two different teams, anywhere from 5 to 8. But he was up there in pressures. He had 82 pressures last year. The Panthers team as a whole had 62. So even if he can do that, that's going to dramatically change the landscape of how this defensive line is going to play. Derek Brown's phenomenal. I like Turk Wharton. You add in a guy like Jalen Phillips, along with your second-round pick, Nick Scordon, who was really good last year. That becomes a... Ooh, and ooh. That just makes your D-line better. And then you throw Devin Lloyd into part of that front seven who can also get after the quarterback on blitzes. I like it. I like it. I'm hoping Devin Lloyd, A, can play great, and B, kind of help coach up Trevin Wallace, because I like Trevin Wallace as an athlete, and I don't think he's had the best mentors, per se. I mean, he's played with guys like Roseboom and Josie Jewell, who are solid guys, but Devin Lloyd would be closer to what Trevin Wallace is in terms of an athlete. So maybe if you can teach him how to be an athlete and use that as an advantage to play the linebacker position, because I don't think Trevin Wallace is bad. He likes to miss some tackles, but he can get to his spots. Sometimes in pass coverage, he can get a little lost. Maybe Devin Lloyd can kind of help him clean up and just solidify himself as a true solid linebacker. The Panthers still have their first round pick. I imagine they're probably going to go tackle with the way their offensive line is starting to shake up. But the Panthers are putting themselves in a real good spot to be back in the forefront, to be ahead in the division, mainly because the Falcons are doing weird things in free agency. Tua got released by the Dolphins, and then the Falcons immediately signed him to a 1-year deal. What are we doing? What are we doing? You have Michael Penix, who you spent a first-round pick on, after you signed Kirk Cousins, who you've now released. You just let your backup running back, Tyler Algier, leave in free agency to go to Arizona. What are we doing? And you don't know what's going to happen with James Pierce. It seems like every other day there's more charges being thrown on him for whatever he's done. I think now he's got some stalker charges and other crazy shit going on. I don't know. I don't know what the Falcons are doing. I don't know. The Saints, a lot of their players left. Mario Davis is going back to the Jets. I think Cam Jordan retired, or maybe he's got one more year in him. That team hasn't done a whole lot. And then the Bucks. We get to the Bucks. They've had some good moves. They signed Alex Anzalone for 2 years, $17 million, which I would have liked the Panthers to have signed him for that. He's a solid linebacker. He likes to make tackles. He's pretty good in pass coverage. But they lost Mike Evans. Mike Evans left the Bucks, which honestly, a part of me is happy because now I realize that, as a Panthers fan, we don't have to guard that guy anymore. But at the same time, it's like, Mike has been there forever. I figured it was going to be Mike was a buck. Mike was always going to be a buck, and that just it's not happening. And he had there had been some subtle nods to him not being super happy with the coaching staff, mainly the head coach, and how they were approaching things. I don't think it was necessarily the fact of I don't think it was a Baker issue. It wasn't, teammates issues, none of that. I think it strictly was a coaching issue that he wasn't a fan of. So now he's gone to San Francisco, which he believes, and I think they believe, they were a true wide receiver away from being great. The defense was still really good last year. The offense at times was still really good. McCaffrey was healthy. They ran the ball well. Now you throw in Mike Evans into the mix. Kittle come back from injury. Ricky Pearsall is solid. I mean, granted, we don't know what they're going to do at left tackle. Trent Williams might get traded, might get released, might structure him a new deal. Who knows? But you give Kyle Shanahan a true wide receiver to work with, they could make some things happen, especially with how loaded that division is between them, the Seahawks, and the Rams. The Rams made a crazy trade right before free agency. Traded for Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs. They gave up one of their first round picks, but they gave up the later one, like pick 20, 22, to go get Trent McDuffie. Gave him a new deal, so they reloaded. I would think they're probably the favorite to win the NFC just because several players from the Seahawks have left. I think they lost Kobe Bryant. They lost some of their depth at D-line. I think they lost Mafe, the defensive back. He left. I think they'll still be fine. I think they'll still be really good because I think the Seahawks have a great eye for drafting talent, and a great defensive-minded coach that has a great system. It'll work. It'll work. And then you got the Cardinals, who went and got Algier. They just signed Minka Fitzpatrick because they released Kyler Murray. He just, as of yesterday, which today is Saturday. Today is Saturday, March 14th. Yesterday, on Friday the 13th, Kyler Murray announced he signed with the Vikings. So I am interested to see how that's going to look in Minnesota. Just because I think when Kyler is playing, he's a very good talent. But I think there was a stat. I think in the last 50 games the Cardinals has played, he's played 30. So he's missed right under half of the games. So it's a matter of, can he stay on the field? Because if he stays on the field, I kind of like what Minnesota's got going on. They just brought back Aaron Jones on a restructured deal. They still got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. You got some really good pieces on offense. That defense is phenomenal. You still got Brian Flores calling the defense over there. I think it's a great move for him. I think Kyler Murray's being brought in to be quarterback one just because JJ McCarthy kind of lackluster. I don't know if they're necessarily moving off of JJ, or if maybe they're like, let's give him a full year to see how this offense should work and go from there. But I don't know. If there's anybody I trust, it's Kevin O'Connell. It's Kevin O'Connell. I trust him. The Lions have made some decent moves. They've lost some pieces. They've added some pieces. They're kind of reloading. The Bears are reloading, even though they just lost Tremaine Edmonds. I think they're going to look to kind of replace that in the draft. But that offense is going to be just as good. They did trade away DJ Moore to the Bills. Bills gave up, I think, a second-round pick. Gave up a second-round pick to get DJ Moore, who I still think can be a bona fide number one, especially for Josh Allen. That's what he needs, is a number one wide receiver, and I think DJ Moore can be that. He's not a jump ball guy. He's more of a crafty, get open, make the plays easier for your quarterback, and that's just what the Bills need. They already have a great running game with James Cook in the backfield. Josh Allen can run the ball well. So if you can give him a guy that can consistently get open and have a guy like Shakir in the slot along with Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, that has the makings of a really good offense. And if they can build up the defense a little bit, I think they'll be in a really good position just because I don't think the Patriots are going to be necessarily as good, just because I think a lot of their wins last year were flukes because they played the easiest schedule in the league, which again, can't knock them. You play who's on the schedule, win who you're supposed to beat. And that's what they did. But now they're going to play a first place team type schedule. I think they're going to kind of come back down to earth a little bit. So the Bills are going to be right back in it to take care of what they need to. The Jets went and signed a lot of players. Demario Davis to come back and help defense. Got a couple secondary guys. They've been throwing some money around. But they haven't thrown the most money around. After the Raiders traded Max Crosby, they had a big free agency. They went and got Nakobe Dean, Josh Naylor. They got, because they got two middle linebackers. They got Nakobe Dean and someone else at the line. They got Nakobe Dean and they got, I'm blanking on his name. It'll come to me. They also went and got Tyler Linderbaum, gave him the biggest center deal we've ever seen. I think it's like 3 years, 81 million, and like 50 of it's guaranteed. I mean, granted, he is the best, arguably the best center in the NFL behind maybe Creed Humphrey. So they're clearly saying, hey, we want to build up this offensive line. We got number one pick. We're taking Mendoza. We got to be able to keep him upright. They went and got Josh Naylor, who is a solid guy. You still got Brock Bowers. You still got Genty in the backfield. They're going to slowly build this up. So it's like, okay. When they trade for Crosby, they get an extra pick with it. They're going to put some pieces together. And then Monday or Tuesday, Monday night rolls around. First day of the tampering period. No, Tuesday. It was Tuesday because Wednesday is the official. Wednesday noon was the official start of the new league year. Signings become official, trades become official, XYZ. Tuesday night, get a little notification that the Ravens are backing out of the trade, saying apparently Max Crosby failed his physical. And it's like, oh, okay. So then we start sitting here, we're like, how's this going to affect the Raiders' free agency? Because now, since they backed out a deal, canceled trade, however you want to word it, Max Crosby's coming back, so that money's going to be on your books. You just signed Tyler Linderbaum and Josh Naylor and Nakobe Dean and several other guys to decent deals. You've thrown out a lot of money. How is this going to work in terms of cap space? And I honestly think it's kind of a shit move by the Ravens, because how are you going to trade for a guy that you knew had surgery when the season ended, knew he was recovering from a tear in his meniscus, and then turn around and say he failed his physical? He just had surgery 2 months ago. I think he finally got off crutches maybe a week or two ago. So you kind of know what you signed up for. You knew you were trading for a guy that was rehabbing and coming back from an injury. If you had any doubts about it, why did you make that trade? Maybe it's because you thought you gave up too much after realizing, oh, he's a hurt player. He's 29. He's owed a lot of money. If that's the case, don't make the deal. Don't make the deal. Granted, they then, and on Wednesday, came out and signed Trey Hendrickson, and they came out and said that they wanted to get both. They wanted Crosby and Trey Hendrickson. That was the plan, but Crosby failed his physical, so they decided not to deal with that. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's what you're going to tell all of us. You're going to tell us you wanted both, but when you realize you could get Trey Hendrickson, who is a little more healthier right now than Max Crosby, and you get Trey Hendrickson for a little cheaper, that's what you did. That's what you did. Let's be honest here. That is what you did. So I do still think the Raiders are in a good spot if they're able to make the cap work with Max Crosby, if they decide to keep him, because he still adds a little juice to your defense. You still get the number one pick with Mendoza. You've added pieces around Crosby to make your defense a little better. Your offense should get better with having a guy like Kubiak who just called the plays in Seattle, along with adding some weapons. I don't think they're gonna, all of a sudden go from 2 wins to 9 or 10, but I could see them jumping up to 7, maybe 8, and being competitive in a lot of games just because of that system. You've beefed up the offensive line. You still got Brock Bowers. They might draft a guy in the second round who's being able to pop off at the wide receiver position. I like what they're doing. The Packers are having a weird offseason. Quay Walker also went to the Raiders because Quay Walker got released. No, yes, Quay Walker was released into free agency, signed with them. The Packers then turn around and also trade Rashawn Gary to the Cowboys for like nothing. I think a third. So Cowboys are trying to beef up their defense, which looking at it, you got now Quinnen Williams, Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, draft a guy to play the opposite end. You got a nice little front four right there. We already know the offense is going to be fine. You got Dak Prescott. You re-signed Javonte Williams. You still got CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. Your offense is going to be fine. Your offensive line's pretty good. Probably draft another guy, but you're in a good spot. You're in a good spot. The Commanders have made some decent moves in free agency. They've added to the running back room. As of right now, they just signed Rachaad White and they just signed somebody else this morning. Because I know they had already added Rachaad White to add to depth. They added another guy. But they're making some nice moves. They've added to the defense a little bit, added to the offense. They're having a good free agency. The Eagles, I don't know what the Eagles are doing. Right? We still got this A.J. Brown trade lingering around. We still got a lot of their players left in free agency. Blankenship left. Jalen Phillips left. I think they lost another safety. No, obviously they lost Nakobe Dean. They lost one more guy, and I can't think of who. But their defense is definitely going to take a hit. A.J. Brown, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if they're going to try and make it work again or if they're going to move off of him. There's been some interesting things going around for sure. The Patriots did get a wide receiver. They traded. Did they trade or did they sign? They got somebody. Hold on. I know I should have been a little more professional. They did sign Romeo Dobbs to help out with their room, which it's not a big splash, but it's definitely helpful. I will also say, there's the Titans have been throwing around some money too. They gave Wan'Dale Robinson like 4 years, $78 million. They got a couple guys on defense. You can tell Robert Saleh is trying to build that team up, give Cam Ward some help, build up a defense for him because he is a defensive minded guy. The Wan'Dale Robinson move kind of makes sense because not necessarily the money, but just the fact of Brian Daboll's calling the plays, former Giants head coach. He must have really liked Wan'Dale. He can see what he can do with him. He wants his guy. So that's going to help. The Colts had a solid offseason. They were able to work out a deal with Daniel Jones. I think it's like 2 years, $100 million. I think only 50's guaranteed. They signed Alec Pierce to a big ass deal. Like I want to say it was like 4 years, $114 million, something crazy. They traded Michael Pittman to the Steelers for some picks. So Anthony Richardson's still supposedly seeking a trade. Don't know what's going to happen there, but he's been granted permission to do so, so he's going to at some point. Jacksonville got a little worse. Obviously, they lost their star middle linebacker. Texans got Blankenship. They're trying to work out some things on their offensive line, which I think is really their only big hole. That and figuring out their quarterback position. But I think a lot of that could be fixed if they work out their offensive line because they traded for David Montgomery, so they got a good running back. We know they got good weapons. And I think CJ Stroud, if he has a good offensive line, can be really good. But it's almost kind of like what the Bengals are, to a sense. The offense doesn't have Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, but it's serviceable. But they have a great defense, which the Bengals don't. So they're not really the Bengals, except the offensive line. You got a really good quarterback. Bengals have a great quarterback, but you have no offensive line, which is going to hurt him, both physically and just at the way he plays. If you don't figure out the offensive line, things are not going to go well. And that's really the most notable things that happen in free agency. A lot of movement happened. A lot of teams got better. A lot of teams overpaid. A lot of teams got worse. So now that most of the dust is settled in terms of how free agency has looked, now we can fully focus on, okay, we know what these teams addressed in free agency. We know kind of what they're going to go with probably in the draft. And that's not far. We're looking at just a little over a month now to when the draft is. So within the next week or so, there will be a little, is now when we're going to start doing mock drafts. We're going to start kind of scheming up what teams are going to be aiming for, mainly in the first round. Kindly talk about how things are going to probably roll in the second round for them. But that is all I got for you today. If you're new here, subscribe, hit the notification button, leave a like. Come back around. You'll know when we got more content coming up. It's about to get busier as we get closer to the draft, start setting up some OTAs, whatnot. And if you've been around for a minute, let me know what your team did and if you liked it. What are you thinking? What are your thoughts as a fan? But until next time, deuces.